Chapter 23 The migrant people, scuttling for work, scrabbling to live, looked always for pleasure, dug for pleasure, manufactured pleasure, and they were hungry for amusement. Sometimes amusement lay in speech, and they climbed up their lives with jokes. And it came about in the camps along the roads, on the ditch banks beside the streams, under the sycamores, that the storyteller grew into being, so that the people gathered in the low firelight to hear the gifted ones, and they listened while the tales were told, and their participation made the stories great. I was a recruit against Geronimo, and the people listened, and their quiet eyes reflected in the dying fire. Them Injuns was cute, slick as snakes, and quiet when they wanted. Could go through dry leaves and make no rustle. Try to do that sometimes. And the people listened and remembered the crash of dry leaves under their feet. Come the change of the season and the clouds up. Wrong time. Ever hear of the army doing anything right? Give the army 10 chances, and they'll stumble along. Took 3 regiments to kill 100 braves. Always. And the people listened. Their faces were quiet with listening. The storytellers, gathering attention into their tales, spoke in great rhythms, spoke in great words because the tales were great, and the listeners became great through them. There was a brave on the ridge, against the sun. Node, he stood out, spread his arm, and stood, naked as morning, and against the sun. Maybe he was crazy, I just don't know. Stood there, arms spread out, like a cross he looked, 400 years. And the men, well, they raised their sights, and they felt the wind in with their fingers, and then they just lay there and couldn't shoot. Maybe that engine knowed something, knowed we couldn't shoot, just laid there with the rifles cocked, and didn't even put him to our shoulders, looking at him. Headband, 1 feather. Could see it, and naked as the sun. Long time we laid there and looked, and he never moved. And then the captain got mad. Shoot, you crazy bastards. Shoot, he yelled, and we just laid there. I'll give you to count of 5, and then mark you down, the captain says. Well, sir, we put up our rifles slow, and every man hoped somebody'd shoot first. I ain't never been so sad in my life. And I laid my sights on his belly, 'cause you can't stop an engine in no other place. And then, well, he just plunked down and rolled, and we went up, and he wasn't big. He looked so grand up there, all torn to pieces and little. Ever see a cocked pheasant, stiff and beautiful, every feather drawed and painted, and even his eyes drawed and pretty. And bang, you pick him up, bloody and twisted, and you spoiled something better than you. And eating him don't make you feel, don't never make it up to you, 'cause you spoiled something yourself, and you can never fix it up. And the people nodded, and perhaps the fire spurted a little light and showed their eyes, looking in on themselves. Against the sun, with his arms out, and he looked big as God. And perhaps a man balanced 20 cents between food and pleasure, and he went back to a movie in Marysville or Tulare, in Ceres or Mountain View, and he came back to the ditch camp with his memory crowded, and he told how it was. There was this rich fella, and he makes like poor, and there's this rich girl, and she pretends like she's poor too, and they meet in a hamburg stand. Why? I don't know why. That's how it was. Why they pretend they like they's poor? Well, they're tired of being rich. Horse shit. You want to hear this? Nah. Well, go ahead. Go on then. Sure, I want to hear it. But if I was rich, I'd get so many pork chops, I'd cord them up around me like wood, and I'd eat my way out. Go on. Well, they each think the other one's poor, and they get arrested and they get in jail, and they don't get out because the other one find out the first one's rich. And the jail keeper, he's mean to him because he thinks they're poor. Ought to see how he looks when he finds out. Just nearly faints, that's all. What'd they get in jail for? Well, they get caught at some kind of radical meeting, but they ain't radicals. They just happen to be there. And they don't want each one want to marry for money, you see. So the sons of bitches start lying to each other right off. Well, in the picture, it was like they was doing good. They're nice people, you see. I was to a show once that was me, and more than me, and my life, and more than my life, so everything was bigger. Well, I get enough sorrow. I like to get away from it. Sure, if you can believe it. And so they got married, and they found out, and all them people that's treated him mean. There was a fella who had been uppity, and he nearly fainted when the fella came in with a plug hat, just nearly fainted. And there was a newsreel with them German soldiers kicking up their feet, funny as hell. And always, if he had a little money, a man could get drunk. The hard edge is gone, and the warmth. Then there was no loneliness, for a man could people his brain with friends, and he could find enemies and destroy them. Sitting in a ditch, the earth grew soft under him. Failure dulled, and the future was no threat. And hunger did not skulk about, but the world was soft and easy, and the man could reach the place he was started for. The stars came down wonderfully close, and the sky was soft. Death was a friend, and sleep was death's brother. The old times came back. A girl with pretty feet who danced one time at home. A horse, a long time ago. A horse and a saddle. And the leather was carved. When was that? Ought to find a girl to talk to. That's nice. Might lay with her too. But warm there. And the stars down so close, and the sadness and pleasure so close together. Really the same thing. Like to stay drunk all the time. Who says it's bad? Who dares says it's bad? Preachers, but they got their own kind of drunkenness. Thin, barren woman, but they're too miserable to know. Reformers, but they don't hit deep enough into living to know. No, the stars are close and dear, and I have joined the brotherhood of the world. And everything's holy, everything, even me. A harmonica is easy to carry. Take it out of your hip pocket, knock it against your palm, and shake out the dirt and the pocket fuzz and bits of tobacco. Now it's ready. You can do anything with a harmonica. Thin, reedy single note, or chords, or melody, or with rhythm chords. You can mold the music with curved hands, making it wail and cry like bagpipes, making it full and round like an organ, making it as sharp and bitter as the reed pipes of the hills. And you can play and put it back in your pocket. It is always with you, always in your pocket. And as you play, you learn new tricks, new ways to mold the tone with your hands, to pinch the tone with your lips, and no one teaches you. You feel around, sometimes alone in the shade at noon, sometimes in the tent door after supper when the women are washing up. Your foot taps gently on the ground. Your eyebrows rise and fall in rhythm. And if you lose it or break it, why, that's no great loss. You can buy another for a quarter. A guitar is more precious. Must learn this thing. Fingers of the left hand must have callous caps. Thumbs of the right finger a horn of callus. Stretch the left hand fingers. Stretch them like a spider's leg to get the hard pads on the frets. This was my father's box. Wasn't no bigger than a bug the first time he gave me a C chord. And when I learned as good as him, he hardly never played no more. He used to sit in the door and listen and tap his foot. I'm trying for a break, and he'd scowl mean until I get her, and then he'd settle back easy, and he'd nod. Play, he said. Play nice. It's a good box. See how the head is wore? There's a million songs wore down that wood, and scooped her out. Some day she'll cave in like an egg. But you can't patch her nor worry her. No way. She'll lose tone. Play her in the evening, and there's a harmonica player in the next tent. Makes it pretty nice together. The fiddle is rare, hard to learn. No frets, no teacher. Just listen to an old man try and pick it up. Won't tell how to double. Says it's a secret, but I watch. Here's how he done it. Shrill as wind, and the fiddle, quick and nervous and shrill. She ain't much of a fiddle. Give $2 for her. Fella says these fiddles cost 400 years old, and they get mellow like whiskey. Says they'll cost $56,000. Don't know. Sounds like a lie. Harsh old bastard, ain't she? Wanna dance? I'll rub up the bow with plenty of rosin. Man, then she'll squawk. Hear her for a mile. These three in the evening, harmonica, fiddle, and guitar, playing a reel and tapping out a tune, and the big deep strings of the guitar beating like a heartbeat, and the harmonica's sharp chords, and the skirl and squeal of the fiddle. People have to move close. They can't help it. Chicken reel now, and the feet tap, and a young lean buck takes 3 quick steps, and his arms hang limp. The square closes and the dancing starts. Feet on the bare ground, beating bill, strike with your heels, hands round and swing. Hair falls down in panting breaths. Lean to the side now. Look at that Texas boy, long legs loose, taps 4 times for every damn step. Never seen a boy swing around like that. Look at him swing at that Cherokee girl, red in her cheeks and her toe points out. Look at her pant. Look at her heave. Think she's tired? Think she's winded? Well, she ain't. Texas boy got his hair in his eyes, mouth wide open, can't get air, but he pats 4 times for every darn step, and he keeps going with that Cherokee girl. The fiddle squeaks and the guitar bongs. Mouth organ man is red in the face. Texas boy and the Cherokee girl, panting like dogs and a beating on the ground. Old folks stand, patting their hands, smiling a little, tapping their feet. Back home in the schoolhouse it was. The big moon sailed off to westward, and we walked, him and me, a little ways. Didn't talk 'cause our throats was choked up. Didn't talk none at all. And pretty soon there was a haycock. Went right to it and laid down there. Seeing the Texas boy and that girl stepping away into the dark, think nobody seen him go. Oh God, I wished I was going with that Texas boy. Moon'll be up for long. I seen that girl's old man move out and stop him, and then he didn't. You know, might as well stop the fall from coming, and might as well stop the sap from moving in on the trees. And the moon'll be up for long. Play more. Play the story songs as I walk through the streets of Laredo. The fire's gone now. Be ashamed to build her up. Little old moon will be up for long. Beside an irrigation ditch, a preacher labored and the people cried. And the preacher paced like a tiger, whipping the people with his voice, and they groveled and whined on the ground. He calculated them, gauged, played on them, and when they were all squirming on the ground, he stooped down, and of his great strength, he picked up each one with his arms and shouted, "Take 'em, Christ!" And he threw each one in the water. And when they were all in, waist deep in the water, looking with frightened eyes at the master, he knelt down on the bank and he prayed for them. And he prayed that all men and women might grovel and whine and on the ground. Men and women dripping, clothes sticking tight, watched, then gurgling and sloshing in their shoes. They walked back to the camp, to the tents, and they talked softly in wonder. "We've been saved," they said. "We're washed white now as snow. We won't never sin again." And the children, frightened wet, whispered together, "We've been saved. We won't sin no more. Wished I know what all the sins was, so I couldn't do it." The migrant people looked humbly for pleasure on the road.